Hello everybody. So today we're going to discuss lesson 12.2, describe angles in plane shapes. We're on page 509 of the third grade Go Math textbook. Our essential question that we should be able to answer by the end of our lesson is, how can you describe angles in plane shapes? So remember, a plane shape is a flat surface. Okay. So an angle, what is an angle? An angle is formed by two rays that share an endpoint. Plane shapes have angles formed by two line segments that share an endpoint. The shared endpoint is called a vertex, and the plural of vertex is vertices. So Jason drew this shape on dot paper, and it wants to know how many angles are in Jason's shape. And so let's look at this angle here. So we have these rays, in a sense, sharing an endpoint. Okay, so how many line segments come together to share an endpoint? Well, we can easily do that by drawing the vertex at where the two line segments meet. So how many vertices are in this shape? Well, there's one here, one there. Think of it as corners. One there, and one there. So how many corners did Jason draw? He drew 1, 2, 3, 4. So he has 4 angles in his shape. Now, look at the angles in the shape that Jason drew, and how can we describe the angles? All right, so we have 3 different types of angles that we need to know how to do in third grade. Okay, and we're not going to worry about their special names. Okay, that's our next grade level. So in third grade, all we really want to know is that one angle is called a right angle. And that is an angle that forms a square corner. Okay, so a square corner, you can kind of think of it as makes a perfect capital L. Okay, and you'll notice the blue box there. Well, that's the symbol that means a right angle. Will it always be in your drawings? In the third grade, yes. As you advance into math, the blue square is not always there. Okay, but we can use some tools to help us to decide if it's a square corner or not. All right, and then so some angles are closer together, and we call those less than a right angle. The measure of their angle is less than a right angle. And just for general terms, a right angle measures 90 degrees. Okay, so angle that is less than a right angle would be anything less than 90 degrees, but greater than 0. And then we have some angles that are greater than a right angle. So our question is, look at Jason's shape. 2 angles are what? 2 angles. Well, this was his shape, right? So I see 1, 2, 2 right angles. Two right angles. One angle, this one here, is less. So one angle is less than a right angle. And this angle up at the top of his drawing was greater than a right angle. Okay? And as we progress through this lesson, we're going to learn how to figure out those terms ourselves rather than just looking at what they're telling us here. Okay, we need to be able to do this. So you need to be able to look at a shape and evaluate the angle of the measure of the angle. Okay, all right, so let's look at page 510. Okay. Go ahead and get, in this example, we're going to need bendable straws, scissors, your paper, and your pencil. So go ahead and I'll pause while you go get those supplies. Bendable straws, scissors, paper, and pencil. All right, so now with a pair of scissors, cut a small slit in the shorter section of a bendable straw. So we have a bendable straw, we got this, sorry, we've got this short section and we've got a longer section. So you're going to cut the shorter section, okay, a small slit. Put your pair of scissors in there and cut a small slit, okay? So you look at here, I just cut a little slit in the shorter end of the straw. Okay? All right, now in a second straw, we're going to cut off that shorter section. Take a second straw, cut off the shorter section. Now you're going to, actually let me repeat, cut off the shorter section of the second straw and the bendable part. Okay, so we're just going to be left with the longer part of the straw. And now you're going to insert the slit end of the first straw into the second straw. So remember, we put a slit in the shorter section of the first straw, push it into the second straw, push it all the way in until it meets the bendable part. Okay. All right. So now we have a tool that we can use to form angles. Okay. All right. So we can, again, form different angles using this tool. Okay. The other part I want you to use is a piece of paper. Okay. And on this one, we're going to make another additional tool. We actually use this a lot in fourth grade when we do angles. So take a piece of paper and fold it in half. Fold the paper in half. So all I did was take the paper, fold it down, and then take it and fold it one more time. Okay. Crease it. All right. So we now have a piece of paper that we can use to put into the corners of angles. Okay, so open and close the straws to make other types of angles. Okay, well, then let's trace them. So if I put my straw just like that, and I trace the angle I am drawing, what type of angle did we make? We made a right angle. Now this time, take the straw from your right angle, and let's close it a little by bringing the top of the angle down. Okay, so if we do that, we can trace the inside and we get an angle like this. Okay, and that angle is less than a right angle. And finally, let's make one that's greater than a right angle. So if we have it like a capital L, square corner, take the left-hand side of the straw and bend it back to the left and trace the inside. All right, so that's greater than a right angle. Now, if I was using that with paper, how could I use this square piece of paper that I have? Well, if I put the corner of the paper and I can see the edge of both of the rays of both of my angles of my angle, that is a square corner. But now look what happens when I put the corner of the paper on this one. So if I line up the edge of my paper with one of the rays, and I put the corner at the vertex of it, you notice I can't see the other angle. It's inside here, right? So the corner of this piece of paper is a right angle. If I can't see the other ray of the angle, it's less than a right angle. On a right angle, I can see both lines. Okay, and now look what happens when we put it on this. So line the edge of the square paper or the folded paper up with one of the rays. Put the corner at the vertex of the angle, and you notice this time that this ray is to the left of the paper. It's off the corner of the paper. This shows that it's greater than a right angle. So if I can see both angles right up against the paper, right angle. If I can only see the edge of the angle that I put my paper on, less than a right angle. If I can see both angles, but they're not lined up with the paper and one is off of the paper, greater than a right angle. Okay, so that's how we can use a piece of paper or a corner of a piece of paper to also use for measuring angles. So let's look at number one. How many angles are in the triangle at the right? So remember, angles are formed in a figure by two line segments sharing an endpoint. So those two share this point. This one and this one share this endpoint, and this line segment and this line segment share there. So how many angles do we have? We have three. Three angles. And you'll find that the number of angles matches the number of sides. All right, number two, use a corner of a sheet of paper to tell whether the angle is a right angle, less than a right angle, or greater than a right angle. Okay. And over time, you'll get good at just looking at the angles and pretty much identifying whether they're greater than, less than, or exactly right angles. So let's put our piece of paper in a corner. Okay. Line up the edge of it. Okay. I'm lining up this edge right here, right? And I'm looking at this angle. And you notice that this line segment is not lined up with my paper. It's off the paper. So this is greater than a right angle. All right. Take your piece of paper, line one of the line segments up with the edge of your paper, and put the point of the paper in the corner of the vertex or matching the vertex. Okay, so I'm going to go with this one right there. Okay, I put my edge of my paper against this line segment. The corner of my paper is in the vertex there. And I don't see another angle. The angle is underneath the paper, right? When we put it back down, okay, so that is less than a right angle. Okay, and now this one, it gives us a clue, and so we really don't even need to measure, but I want to show you that it does match up with the corner of the piece of paper. This blue symbol again means it's a right angle or makes a square corner. So take the edge of your paper, put it on one of the line segments, put the point of the paper at the vertex. Okay, so I was lining up with this, and then I also see the other edge right there. Okay, so I can see both sides of the angle along the edge of my paper. So I can see both of them touching the edge of my paper, right corner or right angle. I meant to say square corner. Square corner, which makes a right angle. All right, let's move on to number 5 on page 511. How many of each type of angle does the shape have? Okay, now I am going to use the symbols for this one. So I'm going to put dots where the vertices are. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3 right angles. I need to figure out this angle right here and the opposite side. So let's put the edge of my paper along one of the line segments. Make sure the corner is right against the vertex. Okay, so I can see it against the edge of the paper here. And this one is off the edge of the paper. So that's greater than a right angle. So I know there's at least one greater. I'm going to say greater than a right angle. And now let's look at the other one. So this one, I'm going to use a different color. So it shows up as it looks the same, doesn't it? All right. All right. I'm measuring this angle. So I'm going to put the edge of the paper against one side. I'm going to put the point at the vertex. And again, I see that the other line segment is off of the edge of the paper. So that's a greater than angle 2, greater than a right angle. So this one has 0 angles that are less than a right angle, and it has 2 that are greater than a right angle. All right, how about this one, number 6? Yeah, I see no blue symbols, so I'm going to assume that's going to mean no right angles. But let's start with this angle here. Okay, put the edge of your paper along one of the line segments. Put the point at the corner or vertex of the angle, and you notice that it would be inside the paper. It's under the paper. Okay, under the paper. So that is less than. We'll just write less than. And I'm assuming when I look at this one, this looks like the same thing, just on the opposite side, but let's verify it. Put the piece of paper again on the edge of one of the line segments. Put the corner of the paper at the vertex. And again, I see that this part of the angle is underneath the paper. So that's less than a right angle. All right, let's do the top part. Okay, so we're going to measure that one. I'm going to put the edge of the paper against the top line segment so I can see it right along the edge of my paper. See, we can see this line segment right along the edge. And then the other line segment is off of the paper. It's not touching the corner, right? It's not touching this edge of the paper. It's off, so that's greater than. Okay, and then I'm going to, the other side kind of looks like the same thing but on the opposite side. So I'm going to put my paper against the corner. Along the edge of the top line segment so I can see it. I'm going to put the corner at the vertex of the angle. And again, I notice that this one is off the paper. It's wider than the right angle, so greater than. Okay, so there were no right angles. So 0 right angles, less than. The 2 bottom ones were less than, and the 2 top ones were greater. And number 7, well, that's a square. Okay, and a square has to have 4 right angles. So I know that if it's a square, it has no angles less than a right and no angles greater than a right. It has to have 4 right angles. Okay, number 8. Use the corner of a sheet of paper. Tell whether the angle is a right angle, less than a right angle, or greater than a right angle. Okay, so we're only looking at this angle here. We want this corner angle. We want this top left corner. Okay, when I'm looking at that, it looks to me to be less than a right angle. Let's put your paper, the edge of it, against the top line segment. Put the corner at the vertex. And so if it was a right angle, I would be able to see the other part of it. See this? Okay. But it's not. This is on the inside. It was covered by the paper. So this is less than. Okay, number 9. Okay, so they're telling me to measure this one. Okay, I know at this point that that's a square corner, and that has to be a right angle. Okay, and the last one. So when I'm looking at that one, that looks what? Greater than a right angle? I don't know. Let's see. So put your paper against the top line segment. Okay, so here's the top line segment. It's along the top edge of my paper. The corner of my paper is at the vertex of the angle. And we're looking for this other side here. That's off the paper. I can see it, right? I can see the other side, but it's not right along the edge. It's extending out. So this one's greater than a right angle. Okay, number 11. How many types of each? Okay, well, let's start with the bottom one. Okay, I can see both sides, both line segments along the edge of my paper. So that's a right angle. And they just tell me that already. So now how about this one? What is the measure of that angle? To me, that looks like less than a right angle. Well, let's verify it. Put the corner of your paper so that the vertex and the corner of your paper match up. I can see the top of the line segment there. Top of the angle there. And I can't see the other side. So it's less than a right angle. So that's less than. And this one, the opposite side, it seems to match this one. Let's prove it. So I'm going to put the corner of my paper so that the vertex matches the corner of my paper. I see the top of the angle here, and I can't see the other edge. It's underneath the paper. So that corner is less than a right angle. So we have 1 right angle, 2 less, and no greater. All right, now number 12. That's a fairly simple one, right, guys? A rectangle also must have 4 right angles. So this is a rectangle. It has to have 4 right angles. It only has 4 angles, so it can't have any less than a right, and it can't have any greater than a right. All right, how about 13? Well, it gives us clues that these two are right angles. So what is that angle? Well, just looking at it, it looks greater than a 90. So put your corner of your paper so it matches up with the vertex. The point of your paper matches the vertex. You can see the top along the edge of the paper. And then I look at the other side and it's off the paper a great deal. So this angle is greater than. And now what is this one? What is this bottom angle? Well, when I'm looking at it, it looks smaller than a right angle. Put the corner of your paper so it lines up. I'm going to use the bottom of my paper. Okay, it lines up with the bottom of the angle, and I can't see the edge of the other angle. So it would either be going off the paper, right along the edge. If it's less than a right angle, I won't be able to see the other angle. So this one's less. So we have 2 right angles. We have a greater than right angle and a less than. So 1 and 1. All right, number 14. Describe the types of angles formed when you divide a circle into 4 equal parts. Well, let's do that. Let's draw a circle. And it says divide it into 4 equal parts. Okay, well, that's 2 equal parts. That's 4 equal parts. Oh, I see. Well, we make 4 right angles. Okay. Number 15. Holly drew the 4 shapes below. Which shape does not have a right angle? What do you need to know? The shape that does not have a right angle. All right, B. Tell how you might use a sheet of paper to solve the problem. Okay, well, we've been using the paper this whole lesson, right? I can place the edge of a piece of paper along the edge of one side of the angle. If the other side is off the paper, it's greater than. If I can't see the other side of the angle, it is less than. Okay. Shape Q has how many right angles? Shape Q. Well, okay, I can see both sides of that, so this is a right angle. Turn the paper this way. I can see both sides along the edge, so that has a right angle. And then this one, okay, matching it up, I see the bottom one right along my edge, but this other side of the angle is off the paper, so that's greater than. I'm going to say GT, greater than. And then this one, edge of the paper along the top. Okay, I can see the orange line segment along the edge of my paper, the corner of my papers at the vertex, and I can't see the other side of the angle. So this one's less than. Okay, so Q. Shape Q has two right angles. It has one angle greater than a right angle and one angle less than a right angle. Okay, how about R? R is a rectangle. Okay, I know a rectangle has to have four right angles. So it's going to be four right angles, none greater than a right angle, and none less than a right angle. Okay, how about S? Well, if we put S and we line that up, okay, I can see both sides of the angle right along the edge. Let's go to this corner. I can see the corners again. I can see both sides of the angle right along the edge of my paper. If I turn it this way, line up the corners, and I see it again. So 3. And the bottom one, I see both parts of the angle right against the edge of the paper. This is 4 right angles. So 4 right angles for S, none that are less. And T. Well, I'm already going to assume that T is not going to have any right angles because all the other ones already have right angles. All right, so line up the top of your paper. I cannot see the other angle, so that one's going to be less than a right angle. Let's go to this edge. Okay, my line segment that of the angle I'm looking at is right there. I can see that one, and this is way off the paper, so this angle is greater than. Okay, now when I look closely at these shapes, this angle and that angle look the same. The opposite angles look the same. So that's less than. And then when I look at this top angle and I look at this bottom angle, they also look the same. So if that angle is greater than, this angle has to be greater than. So shape T has no right angles, and it had 2 angles greater than and 2 angles less than right angles. So 2 and 2. So which shape does not have a right angle? Shape T. All right, and number 16. Circle a number or word from each box to complete the sentence to describe this shape. There are blank right angles. Well, 1, 2. There are 2 right angles. And how many angles less than or greater than a right angle? Well, let's see. We have that one we have to look at, that angle, this angle, and that angle. All right, so edge of the paper, point at the vertex. This one's off the paper, so that's greater than. Let's do this corner. Okay, the edge of the paper goes across the top of this angle, and I can see the other side of the paper, the other side of the angle off of the paper, so that's greater than. Let's do the bottom one. So I see the green edge of the angle, and the other side of the angle is off the paper, greater than. This one, I see the green part of the angle along the edge of my paper. The corner of my paper is pointing right at the vertex, and the other side of the angle is off of the paper, so that's greater than. So it has 4 angles greater than a right angle. Okay, so that's it for lesson 12.2 and the measurement of angles. In our next lesson, we'll work on identifying polygons. So until then, may the numbers always be in your favor.